Well, good evening, everybody. We're going to get started here. Welcome to the March. When I hold my finger up, is that what you do? Well, you're a teacher. You know what to do. Is that? I got lost now. Welcome to the March 30th meeting of the Merrimack Parks and Rec Committee. We got a lot of people here today, so we're just going to kind of go around the room and make introductions. I'm Chris Christensen. I'm chairman of the committee, and we'll start with Laura, and we're going to end with you guys all too. And I'm not going to ask Matt Kasparius. I'm going to introduce as the director, but he has a sore throat or laryngitis, and we're trying to minimize the amount of time he talks, so Matt won't introduce himself.
Lauren James, Vice Chair.
Christine Lavoie, member.
Michelle Cushman, member and secretary.
Jackie Flood, member.
Rick Grenier, MYA liaison.
Cinda Guayumi, school board liaison.
And Matt Kasparius. So the first order of business is the minutes of February 17th. If we have a motion, just anybody jump right out. Jackie, I saw your hand. Is that a motion? Oh. We'll consider that a motion, okay? Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Rick. And any discussion of the minutes? Did you all get a copy? We have some extras here. There's emailed out. Nobody wants one. Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the minutes as published, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Any opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. So that would be 601. Thank you all. And the first order of business on the agenda. And if I make mistakes here, holler at me because I copied this off an old email. But it has to do with a complaint about activities at Martell Field. So who's going to speak to that?
I would love to address that. Thank you.
You want to come up?
And you are, can you state your name for the,
Come
do you have a microphone?
No, let's. I do not, and I'd be
Why don't you come up here and speak into the microphone?
okay, thank you.
And you have to turn it on to just push the button to get a green light.
It is green on.
Okay, you're on.
Hello? Okay. So I guess I'm on. Thank you very much for having me. And what I'd like to talk about.
Can you introduce yourself first, please?
Oh,
Rick
Oh, bright light.
Oh, okay. My name is Woody Thornton, and I live on 4 West Chamberlain Road. And I'm here basically representing the neighborhood of the West Chamberlain, Atherton, John, and Edwards Lane. So I'm the spokesperson. I have talked to these folks, and we've had discussions, and they've given me their input as to what is really going on with the Martell Field. Okay. I'm going to do something that's a little bit different here. I don't want to call this a complaint session, but there are issues that have to be addressed. It's as simple as that. Okay. What is the root cause? There could be a lot of root causes. I will discuss some of these with you, and I will also offer some solutions that I think that you might be amenable to. Okay. First, I'm going to address you to your own mission statement, which basically states that the Merrimack Parks and Rec Department strives to offer programs and services that help to enhance the quality of life for our community through its parks, exceptional recreational opportunities. We provide opportunities for all residents to live, grow, and develop into a healthy, contributing members of our community. And that is an excellent mission statement. I congratulate you on that, by the way. Okay, so that being said, there's one phase here I want you to keep in mind. It's called enhancing the quality of life. It does not say the quality of life of so-and-so team or this so-and-so team, but the quality of life of everybody involved with it. It's the quality of life, especially of the neighborhood. Now, Martell Field is a very unique field in itself. It is the only neighborhood field that we really have. You stop and think about all the other fields, whether it's Vets, Griffin, whether it's over at Reed's. These are all actual Twardowski. These are all fields. But Martell is the only field that's in the neighborhood. This creates another set of complexities. And it's because of this situation that I'm addressing the board now. All right? Martell Field has only one access, which exacerbates the situation over the years, and that's called Atherton. Prior to that, there used to be an egress off of the town barn area. That's been shut off. To make matters worse, there's no lights on Atherton. And I have brought this up in the past. We need a light post on Atherton Road. It's a very, very dark road. It's conducive to loitering. It's conducive to throwing away a lot of kinds of trash. It's just not a good environment at all. The neighborhood I represent is all young families. Children, walkers, people who are very, very gregarious and outside. At the end of Atherton, right off the bat, on number 2, you have a family that has takes care of special needs kids. Right next door is a young fellow, 10-year-old, autistic. Down the road, a young set of twins. When Martell starts getting busy, everybody goes inside. Nobody dares to go down Atherton Road or even West Chamberlain anymore. It is creating a tremendous unsafe environment and unsafe habitat, basically. The way of life, the quality of life is not at all enhanced in this case here. Third, do I have anybody from the women's softball team here? I am not, because they are totally exempt from this. The women's softball are a pleasure to watch, and they definitely conduct themselves with the utmost integrity. There is no problem here. The main concern here is the men's softball. Now, I'm using that as a generic men's softball. The volume of softball play has exponentially gone out of the roof. They try to cram so many games in such a short time. So that also exacerbates. When you have all that traffic of the teams coming down there, the swapping over of teams, one team ends, another team starts, it's Grand Central Station. There is no quality of life, and it's only a matter of time before some serious safety hazards is going to happen. Along the same lines of that is, I have Atherton Road. I've had Atherton Road as an adopted road since 2001. I can tell you exactly the trash that's on that road, and I've outlined some in my previous note to Matt on March 1st. This is the original letter here that I sent to Matt.
I have this.
That I think everybody probably has copies of, and I know that there has been a response to that by the men's softball league. Besides the increase of volume and stuff, and besides the increase of trash, and by the way, I do at this point want to thank the town for doing a very, very nice job, Matt, on taking care of the not just the roads but the field, but also my neighbors. The neighbors also take care of the trash. Okay, even though it's adopted road, F. Thornton, we're always down there taking care of the trash, along with the other areas around. So, basically, because of this whole issue about it and how it's totally getting out of control, and I do understand that the men's softball also have Twardowski fields. So there are 2 fields that are available for the men's softball program. What I like to consider a few things here, okay, and I'm going to, I have a few copies that I made here, and I'll just throw a couple of those this way here and throw a couple that way here.
Thank you.
Again, Chris, like I said, the whole thing is getting out of hand. Getting out of hand. for this committee here to probably take consideration and at least acknowledge that we have to do something, and it cannot stay status quo. It can't at all. First of all, I understand that men's softball is on Monday and Wednesday. That is correct, Matt? Monday and Wednesday is the normal scheduled time for men's softball?
Yeah.
Okay. And women's softball is Friday. Okay, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But I also understand that for some reason there's a tremendous increase of play on weekends. And I do understand that these are out-of-town teams, men's softball. Okay. Not Merrimack, which we have first priority, but outside team. Now, I didn't know we were in the process of renting out our fields. And I was kind of surprised about that whole thing. Okay. So, the way I look at it here is that we got to stop this. That's my first recommendation, that we stop renting our fields out. These are Merrimack fields. This is a neighborhood, a field that has lights on it. Tournaments. Also, there is tournament play on weekends. Sometimes Saturdays and Sundays is just so busy that nobody dares take out of their houses. That's how bad it is. I understand also that supposedly the Merrimack mix, the softball mix, is supposed to be an 80-20 mix. Merrimack players to non-Merrimack players. Now, I understand that's not the case. That was the case, but it is not the case anymore. I think that we should go back, or Matt should go back to the 80-20 mix, and also that's also with a verification of the rosters. I don't think we have any verification process right now of the rosters. I mean, I can submit to you a bunch of names here. How do I know where they live? This is not, we're not here to service other towns, whether it's Manchester, Nashua, or whether it's down in Tingsboro. I'm sorry. Doesn't work that way. Also, one thing that is really a craw at everybody's neck is the whole light situation down there. Okay? The lights are supposed to go off at 10 o'clock. I'm going to tell you right now, the lights never go off at 10 o'clock. That's a myth. The lights do not go on at 10 o'clock. 10:30, if lucky. 10:30, yeah. 11:15, yeah. Anytime. I really feel that by having these lights being so variable, that is creating an extremely unsafe situation down there. Because what happens, you'll come 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, you have everybody leaving there in the dark. It's a bad road. For some reason, people like to speed on Atherton. People love to peel out on Atherton and Chamberlain. The autistic boy that lives right on the corner there is an extremely anxious young fella. And I was talking to Ashley, and he hates that time because every time he hears the darn tires squeal, he goes into what he does. And I'm sorry. We can't have this, especially from grown men that have so little consideration of the neighborhood of Martell. Martell is a neighborhood field. You can always take those lights and bring them over to Twardowski. Or even better yet, won't you put automatic switch-offs so that those lights do go off at 9:30? And I'm proposing shutting those lights off at 9:30. I'm not proposing that we say no to men's softball. Of course not. Hell, my son, Bobby Lambert and Twardowski, they started the league. I'm not saying that. It's been a great program for these years. But we've gone too far. The men's league has gone too far. It's pushed and pushed and pushed. Now, I don't see anything wrong with sending up automatic switch-offs at 9:30, and because by 10 o'clock they should be out, period. You can't have people racing and leaving a neighborhood at these times. These are young kids down there on John and Edwards Lane. Number two, I know that the women's have Friday. I suggest right now our girls softball, NYA softball, need a field. They need field time. Our responsibility first is to the boys and girls of this town. Okay, take that time. Have the girls, the senior girls of MYA, and we're killing two birds with one stone here because they're looking for a field, and we can't make any more fields. Have them on, put them on Tuesday and Thursday nights for our girls. All right. So that's definitely a recommendation that I'm issuing right now with my over here. I also have some issues for consideration by the town council, but I want to pass them by you first. Number one is we have to install a light post at that corner, at that curve of Atherton. Horrible. There is a light post right there already, 5S. All we have to do is to move that light post to that, probably about 60, 70 feet down to where the curve is, install a light. And I'm sure of all the 500 lights that we have in town here, we can always steal one street light to move over to Atherton. I would also like to suggest that we open another egress from those fields onto Turkey Hill Road, going back through the town barn. Because right now you only have one exit, Atherton. It becomes a superhighway. Edwards and Johns are called lanes, and those are one car wide, and they can't. That's about it. And you don't want cars and trucks going up there at all. Speed is a factor. These men come on there at one speed, and they leave twice as fast. I'm really surprised that men would speed on Atherton. And God forbid if a young fella is late for a game. It would be a nice idea to put a stop sign at Atherton and West Chamberlain. Also for police, I'm going to request them separately to start patrols for that whole area, especially at 10 o'clock, where there should be no loitering and nobody around by 10 o'clock. So that'll be a separate thing. I just wanted to make sure that this committee knows where I'm coming from, why I'm here representing the neighbors, and that the field, because of men's play, has gotten totally out of hand. That's all I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't want to do too much back and forth here.
No, I don't want to either.
This isn't intended to be a headbutting session.
No, it's
So-
not. Thank you.
Just let me finish. Thank you. You had the floor, now it's everybody else's
betcha.
floor. And I'm concerned that, well, there's a couple of things here. Matt checked with the police department. There were very, very few complaints. I think 3 over last year. Is that correct? Okay, 3 over last year. Granted, it's a seasonal thing. I'm concerned that the men's softball league is being used as a generic when in fact we don't really know that they're the ones spinning their tires or dumping trash or whatever else. There's plenty of other opportunities for other people to be down in that area, and I certainly agree with you in terms of lighting on the roads, that if there were more lighting, there probably wouldn't be some other activity going on in the dark. And I think we can address that without too much trouble. Doesn't mean it's going to get installed next week, but certainly we do have some budget within the DPW to install streetlights at various points. And I think that's a very good idea. Beyond that, we can certainly do or ask the police department to do some directed patrols. And we may be able to work something out that's reasonable for everybody in terms of the lights being on, off at specific times or whatever. My understanding right now is that there are members of the various leagues who stay after the games are over to do some cleanup, empty the trash, shut down the concession stand, whatever it is they do. And so the lights are on while they're still working. And I'm under the impression, without having verified this, that the lights basically are supposed to be aimed so that the lights by themselves do not intrude outside the field area. Yes, if the lights are on, there's perhaps more people hanging around to clean up. But you're not talking about light pollution at this point?
No.
Okay. So whether the lights are on or off at 9:30, 10 specifically, the kids we're talking about at that point have gone to bed, presumably, or at least at that hour of the night they're in their house anyway. And if there's no light pollution problem there, then I think the scheduling thing can probably be modified in one way or another. I'm going to guess on a weekend, if there's a tournament, there's probably more cleanup to do after the tournament is over or after the games are over or what have you. I think some of these guys will probably address some of this stuff when we get to that point. But that's kind of where I'm looking. And I do want to say we appreciate your doing the Adopt a Road and doing some of those kinds of things. I'm not sure that we can change who plays there. One question, this is just a question from me, so anybody that knows can answer. If I own a company in town, I can have a team named XYZ Company Softball Team. And that may include individuals who work for me but who don't live in Merrimack. I think that's always my impression only. Is that correct? Anybody know? That is correct. That is correct. So if you take a roster and it says this guy lives in Nashua, this guy lives in Litchfield, this guy lives in Bedford, but he works for a Merrimack company that sponsors the team, and he's wearing that T-shirt, doesn't matter where he comes from, he's part of that team. So I think that's just the way it's always been. And we do the same thing if you're a business and you want to rent the picnic area at Wasserman Park, or you're a business and you want to use the library. All of those things are available to support our businesses. So I don't think we can do a lot with the roster type stuff. If it's tournament play, then usually that's a different sign-up procedure, and those things are scheduled. Correct me if I'm wrong again, Matt. Those things are scheduled separately for a particular league or series of games, what have you. And if there are people coming in for league play or tournament play, are they less respectful of where they are? I have no way of knowing. I just have this suspicion that there are, let's call them unknown people at this point who are causing some of the problems. I don't disagree with you. You have some problems. But I think we need to put out a little bit more effort as the season gets on to determine who is actually, whether it's squealing the tires or dumping trash or staying late or whatever the other things are. You've given us a good list. So that's my initial take. I think there may be some problems. I'm not sure that we're aiming directly at them yet in terms of the source of the problems. But I think certainly we can do some things to take a look at it. Beyond that, for the committee first, are there any other comments yet? Jackie, you waving your pen, or you got something to say? Okay.
First of all, how long has that particular field been used for men's and women's softball, I wonder?
Men's softball forever, because they built it.
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Long time.
Yeah.
It's actually,
So that's
Can you
the
give us your name
origin
for the
of
record, please?
Oh,
I'd be happy to speak to a lot of.
Okay, come on up, bring up a chair.
microphone right there.
And it is on, okay. I'm Ryan Mayotte. I'm actually the state director for the New Hampshire USSSA Softball Association. I lived in Merrimack for 35 years. Currently live in Goffstown, but there's still a lot of my family and friends in town. So I have a vested interest in Mr. Thornton's complaints. I don't know where to start or how to address a lot of his concerns. There's a lot there. I think
was wondering.
it's regarding you. We've been using the fields for a long time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's actually in the deeds to the town.
Yeah. If it's okay, I'd like to finish my question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, don't apologize. I'm just thinking about the best way, and then you would want to make remarks afterward.
Sure.
Or any of you.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I cut you off, Jackie.
No,
I
no,
didn't
you didn't.
understand
You
that
didn't. It just happened, and
okay.
I was interested in what he had to say, and I still am
Okay.
going to be directing some of the questions to you. So the origin of that field is for men's play,
Adult softball.
adult softball. That's interesting. I think I have a couple of remarks to make too. Common sense tells me that I live in a dense neighborhood by Babuzik Lake, so I know I'm familiar with Edward Lane and John Lane. All it's very dense, and I know how annoyed I get when people are noisy with the water, especially. And my common sense tells me that if the schedule is that you guys are playing on Wednesdays and Mondays, and then there's trash and squealing of wheels. Let's face it, my common sense tells me that's something that we have to address, that you guys have to address probably. That's my take on it. And I know that there's no proof, and you're not stopping every car, but that's, I think, a reasonable assumption. And I think that the rosters ought to be checked a little better. I really do. I think if there's supposed to be an 80-20 mix, then it should be an 80-20 mix. And I honestly think that people who live in Merrimack would be more respectful, and that and possibly that 20% that aren't. And I understand about the company's rights and all, and that's fine. But I think that there has to be a little bit more. I think basic consideration is going to work before you get into, speed bumps and all that. But I'll tell you, I've thought of speed bumps more than once because I've seen neighborhoods where it really works. But I think if the guys will take some responsibility for this and not get defensive about it and recognize that there really is something going on here, I think that I don't see why this can't come to a good end. And I think that the lights ought to be definite and that they shouldn't have access to that box. And it might be that they do need till 10, because I don't know how long but you must play till dusk easily, and in the summer that's at 9. So that's okay. And I think the schedules probably might be up for review if you can't get together. I think you can get together, though. It doesn't sound like it's anything. And I think liquor must be involved. It's a funny thing that the women don't squeal out, but I think that there's got to be a root cause, and I suspect that that's called beer. But that's my comment.
You want to give us your take on it, Ryan?
Yeah.
I don't know from what Mr. Thornton has said that squealing happens on any, if we're going to focus on that, on any particular night.
I could just touch base on
Sure.
all her
So,
pieces.
anyway, go ahead.
The first piece is that, I think Mr. Thornton's end result is that he would like to see the MYA have the use of this field. I just want to point out to the committee that there's a deed in place on both fields, Martell and Twardowski, that they're both been donated or given to the town for adult softball use. That is part of the deed. Okay? In reference to, I'll try to address all, the lights. And this may be part of me, and I don't know whether other guys from the league, and I'm sorry for my ignorance, but I thought always that the curfew was 11. So I'd be first to say that I probably, we all as a group have maybe, touched, where we're at as far as shutting the lights off.
Can
Yes.
I interject something with that? Our games run at
Excuse me,
6
can we have your name, please?
My name is John Raymond.
And you just grab one of the mics?
That's fine. That's
Thank you.
fine. That's good. My family owns and operates Rosehaven, by the way, and I'm part of the men's softball league. And we are concerned about the issues down there as well. Our softball games start at 6:30, 7:30, and 8:30. Anybody knows anything about softball knows that they will almost never run on time, so that you're winding up with an 8:30 game that's supposed to finish at 9:30 that is sometimes starting at 9:15. USSSA has amended their rules so that foul ball, blah blah blah. It has speeded up the games, but we still do run long sometimes. And so,
Let me interrupt. These are one-pitch games?
No, it's a 1-and-1 count to start.
Okay.
So it's not 7 pitches; it's 5 pitches for a full count. So games do run longer. Very rarely are they hour games. So a 8:30 start finishes at 9:30. Very rarely will ever do that, just because of the competitive nature of the sport. So we do run later than that. As a rule for our men's league, we have adopted the rule for the lights to be turned out a half hour after the last game is finished. That's kind of what we've done with the town over the years and developed that. So that's, and there's no doubt we've had games that are starting at 9:30 easily in the past. And some of our players don't like that because of that. But, that's part of the thing. So that's part of so a timer set at 10 o'clock would seriously hamper the effectiveness of our league to be able to finish games in a time length. So, okay.
For somebody,
Add on to
yeah,
that?
please.
I'm sorry. I'm Tom Boland. I'm with the Men's Softball League as well. I just wanted to point out that this schedule is no different than it's been for many, many years. So I don't want anybody to get the impression that something has changed. If anything, as John and Ryan will attest, we've had rule changes aimed at making our games shorter, and they have worked. Our games have gotten shorter. The process that our league goes through at the end of our nights at Martell, at least since I've been president of the board for the last few years, after the last game, we do take some time to do what we need to do to the field to get it ready for the next group that's coming in to play. And again, we're there on Mondays and Wednesdays only. We also take some time to try and clean up the trash, get it in the barrels. And then immediately after that, we try and shut down the left field lights, because we'd kind of determined that those are the lights, if any, and I don't think anybody has really complained about, as Chris said, light pollution. But if anything, those left field lights are more aimed towards the neighborhood than the right field lights, which kind of shine on the parking lot and out towards the Gibson field. So we shut down those left field lights as soon as we can. We do leave the right field lights on for a while until people have kind of made their way out. There is a social aspect to men's softball, women's softball, co-ed softball. Part of what makes it fun for people, part of what contributes to this being a quality of life issue that a lot of us really love and enjoy and have for many years. So there are people that stay and socialize for a while after the games. I would be very concerned about putting a timer on those lights. Because if our games are running late, the lights go out, it gets very dark, as you well know. Very dark over there. You're going to have safety issues with people getting in and out of the parking lot. We have families and kids that come down to watch our games. You're going to leave them in the pitch black. You're going to have people that are going to be ticked off that their game got cut short. There'll be more squealing of tires than there is now. You're also going to have trash that's just left because nobody's going to be able to take the time with the aid of any light to go around and clean up. Everything's going to just be left where it is, and I think your trash problem is going to get worse. And, you know, not to mention the impact that it would have on our league's ability to function as it has for many, many years. And this is where we were very kind of surprised and taken aback at the letter from Mr. Thornton, because we know our league, in terms of length of games, in terms of our respectfulness to the neighborhood, if anything, it's gotten better over the last several years. We've got a great group of leaders on the board of this softball league. We take it very seriously. We do self-police. We've had a lot of young kids come into the league in the last few years, but we really don't have bad apples. We've got a great group of young kids that have kind of instilled some new life in the league, and I don't understand. Again, I can only speak to what goes on Mondays and Wednesdays, but I know from our standpoint that our league is, if anything, better than it ever has been in terms of our respect to the neighborhood that we play in. So I do think, you know, many of the concerns that I heard relate more to the ingress and the egress and issues on the road, and you know, obviously we're subject to the same issues getting in and out of there. I do think, and I pointed that out in my response letter, that we lost a big chunk of the parking area at Martell a couple of years ago when DPW took out a bunch of big trees from somewhere and dumped them in the corner of the parking lot. There's probably 10 to 15 spaces, I would say, that are lost because of the tree debris that's still sitting in that parking lot, and I don't know what the reason for that is, but you know, that would help, as Mr. Thornton pointed out in his letter. You know, occasionally there are cars that end up parked out on that street. When the lot in Martell is full, we get more cars in there if that tree debris was cleaned up and gone. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents. I don't want to take too much time. I could go on forever, but that's where we're coming from, and we obviously don't want this to be an issue. We want to get past it. What we can do, we'd be more than happy to do. But we do have a serious issue with the issue of the lights being turned off at a set period of time. It's just not the way the sport functions. We only have that one field with lights in town available for our use. In order for this league to be a benefit and an amenity for the people of Merrimack, for the businesses of Merrimack that sponsor the teams, the league has to exist. And I would say that something like that would seriously threaten the league's ability to continue and go on. The last thing I wanted to mention was the discussion of the rosters and the 80%. I know that 80% it's written down on a piece of paper, so it's in your policy, I guess. I would suggest it's probably been there for a long time. It may be something that needs to be revisited. What's the magic to the 80%? The reality is softball, adult softball in general, and Ryan can attest to this from a state and a national perspective, participation has been declining as it has in all kinds of recreational endeavors, golf and tennis. People are spending more time sitting in front of their TVs than out doing athletic pursuits. But I would say, I don't know what our percentage is at, to be honest with you. We are absolutely a Merrimack first league. We accept anybody who lives or works in Merrimack.
Pays taxes too. I meant to.
Yeah. But to the extent we have roster spaces available after that, after accepting anyone from Merrimack who wants to play, in order to keep the league in existence, we've allowed on a very select and invitation-only basis players outside of that to come into the league. I just think the 80%, I don't know. I would suggest maybe that needs to be revisited. Again, for this to be an amenity, which it is, to the people that live and work in Merrimack, the league has to exist, and that's where we're at. We've been a 10-team league for most of our existence. Hasn't grown. It shrunk for a couple of years. We've been able to get it back up to 10, which is really kind of, you get much less than 10, and the league is then in jeopardy of being viable. So be happy to answer any other questions if there are any. Or
Thank you.
Yep.
I do have a question.
For me?
For
For anybody?
Whoever knows the answer. Maybe nobody knows. But I'm thinking in terms of the... Thanks, John. Your mic. Thank you. I do have a question. I'm thinking in terms of the entrance and egress situation. My recollection is you used to be able to drive in there through the town barn parking lot, yes. And that's been blocked off, and I can think of half a dozen reasons why that might occur. But at the same time, I can think if the traffic flow only goes in and out West Chamberlain / Atherton Road, how long has that been going on? Does that match in time to some of the problems that we're seeing? And if there are a mechanism, a gate that's open when the games are on and a gate that's closed the rest of the time, I don't know.
Yeah. I think that
I'm looking at
entrance
time
has been,
first.
That entrance has been blocked off for at least 3 years, I would say. About 3 years. And it is...
more myself.
Yeah. It definitely is tight getting in and out of there. The other point I had on that issue was just that there's a lot of sand that gets kicked out onto Atherton Drive because the parking lot is dirt. Yeah. It's very easy to... I've probably squealed my tires going out of there, and my kids will tell you I drive like a Pepe. So it's very easy to squeal your tires going in and out of there, even if you're not really being reckless. That's just my observation from being there a lot.
I think that might be one thing we would want to check with the DPW / police and see what their take is on controlling the through traffic. I'm sure, and I think we all can see where making that a throughway is not a good idea in some respects, but if it reduced the traffic flow at one end, all being focused on one end, that might be beneficial as well. So I think we should take a look at that. We've got some things here we can take a look at. So what I'm going to say is Matt and I, and we may call on Tom and Woody to have further future input. But I'm going to say right now, Matt and I should get together with DPW and the police and see what suggestions and thoughts they have on all of this. I don't want you to have to sit, or your neighbors to have to sit with a clipboard and a magic marker and take notes when you hear the tires. But I think it might be helpful to know if it's Saturday nights after a tournament, or Monday nights, or Wednesday nights, or Thursday, Friday, Sunday, I don't know. If we think it's one group, or if it's just because there's sand. I just don't know. But I think knowing some of that might take some of the pressure off saying, you're the one. I don't know. And I'm sympathetic to the light situation. And if we've heard that there's no light pollution, or not light pollution is a problem, then certainly you can't end a game that starts at 9:30 when the lights go off at 9:45. So, yes.
Do we have anything as far as rules regarding end times, or is there anything that, because I can understand, I think it's probably less about the light pollution, because I think there's been an acknowledgement it's really not light pollution per se, but rather what happens after that. So a lot of traffic is going on then later at night because the games are going later. But is there a particular time, are we in violation of what the town has set for or what we have?
I think
as far
that
as
bears some additional research. There's some thought that it's 11. There's some thought that it's 10. That 9:30 would be better. That 9:30 may be difficult to maintain the games at. But
Chris,
yeah,
officially the town policy says 10 right now, and I think that policy was last updated in 2010. Is what I came up with. I tried to track it back. But when that when that time was changed, I don't know. Maybe it was 11 at one point and they changed it. I don't know. Just the last version of the policy I have was written in 2010. So,
Rick?
Just a couple of points. If I understand it correctly, men's softball is only using the field 2 nights out of 7.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be immature or premature to place the blame on them until we learn more, like I think we all agree with. And also, my question to the softball league would be, or to all of us, is if they're only using it Monday and Wednesday night, who's using it Tuesday, Thursday, and have we ever considered moving some of your games to those days to eliminate the late nights?
Well, go ahead.
There's actually a men's league that uses it Monday, Wednesday. And on Friday, it's actually not a women's league. It's a mixed league. Right. So it's men and women on Friday night. Sounds like Friday night there wasn't an issue, but just, there's men and women. It's not just women on Friday night. There is another entity that has reached out to Matt to use the field on Tuesdays. Mm-hmm. So we don't have the use of the field on Tuesdays right now. We do use Thursday nights as for the league, or at least we're going back to it, I believe, to possible rain makeout nights. If we get rain, we may make them up on a Thursday. It's also difficult to get a commitment from people to play more than 2 nights a week. We end up seeing, if we schedule more than 2 nights a week for our league, we see some forfeits in there because people have other things to do and they play in other leagues. So have found it's been difficult to schedule more than 2 nights a week to keep a consistency of attendance.
Many of our men that play in the league do coach in MYA in other town, coach kids in other entities as well.
So as far as association, for me, we use it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I can attest to more of the tournament stuff if you wanted me to answer some of that.
I think you can certainly describe the volume or scheduling of tournament
on
play.
A given weekend. We can have 10 to 12 teams that play on a Saturday. It's a double elimination tournament. You're starting at 8 a.m. on both Martell and Twardowski. And depending on, the number of teams, it will determine the amount of games and really kind of determines how late the day goes. I can tell you, and I know the guys that play tournament ball here will tell you that at the end of the day, I walk the whole Martell field. I walk all of Turowski Field. The trash is picked up, and I think Matt could probably tell you that the DPW tells him that when they pick up the trash on Monday morning, it's at least all in the barrels, and the barrels are together and in trash bags all near each other. I do not leave a thing. Jim Allen, who lived in this town for many years, ran a lot of tournaments, and I learned a lot from him. And one thing he always taught me was to make sure when you leave the fields are clean. I always clean the fields at the end of the day on Saturday. And when I drive out of Martell along Atherton, if there's anything on that road that I can see from my headlights, I pick it up. So on the weekends we're playing on that Saturday, I can tell you at the end of the day, on both fields, the trash is picked up, and I make sure Atherton looks respectable. There's no trash that you can see that's sitting there. I take that very seriously. I always have. I don't think Matt's got a lot of complaints about that over the years. We've also done, in respect to Martell Field, and, the deed and so forth, my wife has also taken up a huge, with the help of, I think, all of us, a huge interest in the concession stand at Martell Field. We've put a lot of money into that concession to be able to get it to the point where we can now use it as a concession stand with inside. We pay money to the town to use it, and I think it's been a benefit to our league and for our tournaments. And you would like her to speak to that, she could. But we invest a lot of time and resources in those fields. We understand that, it's a privilege to use those fields. We don't have a lot left for adult stuff in town. This is one of the things that we have left for us to do after work. And as Tom said, yes, we play 3 games a night, and it's a time for us to sit and talk with friends and socialize. That's part of what we do. I don't think we're malicious in any way. I don't think we try to make things more difficult. I would agree with Mr. Thornton and Mr. Bolin that I think one of the major recommendations could be for us to have that other pathway by the DPW building as we had in the previous years. That was a lot more cars, I think, would be going on Chamberlain and Atherton, much less. It's easier access, actually, to go in that entrance versus, those other roads. I would agree as well, regardless of what we do with that stuff, that a light pole is appropriate on Atherton. It is very dark there, often. So that would be a good recommendation. I also want to speak a little bit to, when I run a tournament on a Saturday and, you have people from out of town coming in, my tournament packets, I always stress, to be respectful, no alcohol, those kind of things. I can't police all day as to whether an adult is having an adult beverage around the corner where, we may or not see her in a cup. Or even sometimes it's clear as day and I try to address it. But those tournaments bring a lot of money into the town. With the restaurants, the stores, the establishments, people are coming to town and spending a lot of money, and it's not just that they're coming here and using our field and leaving. I think there's a benefit to some of these teams coming from out of town and spending the money in town, and contributing to our economy here. I don't know if we've addressed everything that's been said. I'm trying to touch base on each point. I just want you to know that we make the effort. I make the effort at the end of a tournament to clean out that area, to clean the fields, to clean the roads, to try and get people to be respectful of the area, to not keep the lights on all night. Again, my ignorance to the fact that, and I don't know why, Matt, it's probably just, as far as the 10 and 11 o'clock. I can tell you that it's not much later than that, if it is that late. I think I had an officer come once last summer to say, hey, it's getting close to curfew, let's get the lights off, one time. And we did, in the town, we maintain the fields, the town maintains the fields, we take care of what we're using. So, I think it's important for the committee to understand that, we make the effort, we try to do the right thing. Whether it's in the league, whether it's playing tournament ball, You know, and
Okay. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. Like I say, I think the thing at this point is probably for Matt and I to do some stuff. Cinda?
Yeah, I just had another question regarding the parking. And I'm trying to think of what that neighborhood looks like, you know, where people might park if, let's say, there wasn't enough parking in the parking lot. Are they parking on the streets or on sprinkler heads? Is it close enough to places, or is the parking on the street that makes it extra unsafe?
Well, definitely so, yeah. When they park on Atherton, it's horrible. It's horrible. But the point that you brought up, Ryan, is that those trees that are there, for some reason, it's a tree dump. And I know for a fact, you're right, it looks disgraceful, and you're missing probably a dozen parking lots there.
Yeah.
That would definitely help.
Yeah.
When they park on Atherton, it's really creates a safety issue.
yeah, there's, you know, I think when you're going down Atherton, you take a left into Martell Field. As you're getting closer to the entrance to Martell, you'll find cars that park along the left side of the road prior to the entrance, and also after the entrance on
Right.
the left side.
Because when those trees came out of that neighborhood, that was pretty upsetting to a lot of the neighbors there with that, the work that was done. Is it something, I mean, I guess I'd be curious, can we get those parking spots back?
I've got it on my list.
Yep,
Okay.
so do I.
That's the first I've heard about that particular issue, so.
Because it sounds like it might have just been forgotten, set there, and left for dead.
I do have a suggestion that when you get together with whatever subcommittee you want, Mr. Thornton and Ryan and Mr. Boylan and Raymond and I don't know the other two gentlemen, that you will come back to the committee though for a decision and not make a decision yourselves. I'd appreciate that myself.
Well, I think some of this stuff isn't really our decision. So if we go to the DPW and they say, or they agree that we need a stop sign, we don't have anything to do with stop signs.
Oh, no,
That's
of course not, Chris.
DPW and town
But a
council and
report
so forth. So,
that I think
oh,
that
we will definitely come
should
back.
have a report
Yeah,
before
we'll
a
come
final
back.
decision is made. Okay.
Right.
Matt,
And I
go
just
ahead.
tried to do this easily here. Yeah, so any kind of policy changes would have to be approved by the council anyway. It wouldn't be, we'd make a recommendation, after we talk and make those, have those discussions, but ultimately it's the council that would decide hours of night and timers and anything else, leagues versus out of town or, whatever. But we can make that recommendation. Going back to Rick's earlier question, we have actually offered the one day that's not currently being used is Sundays, and we've actually have made an offer to the MYA for that for Sundays, but they weren't particularly hoping for nighttime usage. So, and they weren't sure how late they'd want to play at night on a school night and that kind of thing. So, but we have offered Sundays to them because it's wide open at this point. That's all I got.
Okay, I think we're concluded on that part of the agenda. Thank you all for coming, and our
Thank you,
next
Mr. Thornton.
meeting
Hopefully we
is...
can, address all this together.
We will. We definitely will. This is a positive, very positive meeting, and I thank you for having us, and I appreciate that. Nice meeting everybody again. Thank you. Except for John.
So our next meeting is April 20th, if we agree on that at the end of the meeting. And so we'll try and get something back to the committee. By then, we'll be in touch with, Tom, are you the one? John? Tom?
Tom is our president. You also want to CC Ryan on anything.
Yep. It could be Ryan and myself.
Just to point out real quick, there's never a good time for this, so, but I'm glad it's being brought up now. But just so the committee's aware, there's tournaments already scheduled through the summer, through the national office that I work with. So to do any kind of major change, I think, Matt and I can discuss, but I have weekends that are already scheduled at national office as far as dates, times, stuff like that, so that's gonna be difficult for me.
That's fine. We're not talking about changing schedules that
Okay,
way. At least not yet.
okay.
When's your season start? Earlier this year than normal?
Well, right now,
practices?
we're hoping to get on the field on the 9th, but, Matt's been great about letting us know whether we can. We're not sure we can at this point based on the wetness of the field, but the league, we're starting on April 16th.
Okay.
Season actually starts the 1st of May. We'll start practices April 16th for the last couple of weeks of April.
Okay, good. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Woody, thank you for coming. Appreciate your
Thanks for having us.
bringing this to our attention.
Thank you. We've got a lot accomplished today.
I think so.
Yeah. Nice to meet you. Bye, Jackie. Nice to meet you.
Bye, Woody.
Bye.
Night, John.
We'll pause for just a minute.
This guy has an appreciation.
Brings us to old business.
Let's move on.
Understanding that there's a problem.
Update from the Friends of the Merrimack Dog Park.
There's one but a problem. I think that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Some things going on. At this point with the dog park, we are at $29,170. We do have a request for reimbursement of $39.82 for the flyers that went out for the dog licenses. So that's pretty exciting. We're getting close to our goal. I believe we're thinking about going to bid soon. I don't have a date
Yep.
yet, but that's in the process. We did have a 99 fundraiser, so thank you all who were able to come out. And with that, with the raffles and donations, we were able to turn in $280.25, so that was fantastic. We won't know about the actual percentage from the food piece of it for a while, and we're still waiting to hear from Sal's at this point. We haven't heard from that previous fundraiser. And that's kind of it right now. We're going to be scheduling our next meeting and next fundraiser soon.
Excellent. Good job.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess the big deal now is to get the bids out, or
That is the big deal.
request for bids.
Chris,
Yeah.
two things.
Matt,
Sorry. One, we do need a formal vote on the 3982 because the committee
gonna
has to
say
vote
that-
to expend that.
Right.
In terms of the bid, we're hoping it'll be ready by Friday. Kyle and I met yesterday to kind of put the final bid specs together. He has to get it to Xenia, who will put it out to bid. The challenge is that Xenia's on vacation next week. So if he gets it to her before Friday,
Great.
it'll go out before she goes out on vacation. If not, it'll be 2 weeks later, But realistically, bids coming back end of April, and then we're looking at kind of like late May, June, assuming bids are within where we are with our money.
Oh my goodness, Matt.
so, do we have a motion for $39.82 to be released?
A motion, if I
Christine
can?
move, Laura second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. I guess it's 7-0. No abstentions, right?
Correct.
Okay. And athletic field needs reviewer. This is for you, Rick, right?
Yes.
And we have a handout here from Rick,
Yes.
3 pages.
Given each of us a real simple handout to give you an idea of what our current needs and projected needs are. Thank you. I provided a handout with current and projected needs and some basic diagrams that show you about how large these fields are. In regards to baseball and softball fields, we would ideally like to have something that is essentially a square, much like Gibson is if you look at it from a big picture. And I tried to keep it simple because at this stage I don't think we need to go into too much detail. And I know Matt's going to address Colesman in a moment, but the fact that we do have Colesman for at least another 3 years is a positive step in regards to softball and soccer, actually.
That's awesome.
So that's a big thing. 2 different issues, but they do interact a little bit, I guess. So any questions about the fields or the physical part of it?
I don't think so for me.
You know, and I neglected to add that in a perfect world, we're hoping to get a basketball court.
Right.
We've mentioned that before. At this time, we think it would be ideal at the MYA building property, but of course, I think that's something we all should discuss.
Would it be big enough in that back
It would
lot
be,
for a full size?
yeah,
Oh, behind?
yes.
Where?
To the
North
to the
end of the
north
building.
of the building, of the MYA building.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Does that area get used at all for overflow parking?
It does occasionally, and I've
So you'd
noticed
have
some
to block it
fishermen, too.
off so you don't have cars dripping oil on the
Yeah.
basketball
Oh, I envision a fence around this court anyway, so that would prohibit cars.
Will that,
Going into the street.
Yes.
will that impact the people who are using the parking? Will there be sufficient parking in that area now if we're taking those spots away that people are parking for overflow and fishing, you said?
Yeah.
So is there enough parking elsewhere to compensate for that?
I think that's something we need to sit down and look at.
Okay.
I can't give you an answer on that and honestly say yes.
Well, there's probably 2 or 3 places you could put a basketball court. They're not huge as long as you have adjacent parking, so we can take a look at that. Did you have other thoughts besides the MYA building?
No, honestly.
I guess I'm thinking someplace where there are other facilities, porta potties, for example. There's no porta potty in that area. I guess there's some down by Bice Field.
Yes. I was mainly thinking about a public area that is in a busy part of town. I think it'll get more use and also be easier to kind of keep an eye on, so to speak,
I agree with that.
as compared to, say, a Wasserman Park maybe that.
Right.
Right.
Cinda?
Also, there's the basketball kind of hoops, but they're right in the parking lot right now in that area, right?
Yes.
And so that's not necessarily safe either when you've got people there playing basketball and you've got traffic coming in and out.
Absolutely.
And then that also opens up, a lot of people won't park back that way because it's being used. So if it were in another spot, that would open up that whole parking area and create a safer environment.
One of the things that goes with that particular site is the redesign of the Wire Road intersection, which is pending. Of course, it's been pending for 15 years. Nonetheless, that's one of those things, it's something that sits for 15 years, and then all of a sudden, as soon as you do something like that, oh, you know what? Guess what we're getting the plan for next year? I'm sure we wouldn't have the crossover, but I don't want to do a lot of planning there if that's going to get wiped out for that purpose,
Understood.
which is one of the reasons I'm thinking of other locations as well. And I guess that's on the search list, if you will. Have you thought of other locations? Could we expand the basketball court that's over on O'Gara Drive?
Possibly. I think that would be a good location. I think the park right down the road would be a great location, personally, because of its visibility.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
if we
think
want
that
it
may
to be that.
That may be more development
Yes.
than what's
There's a
allocated
basket
for.
there now.
Is there?
We saw
There-
it
there's a
today.
In the
going
back of the
by.
parking lot. Yeah, I know. It's a private basket, though, but
Oh, sure.
yeah.
Yeah. It wouldn't even be allowed there because of the restrictions.
Okay.
And Agara, the challenge there, one is we're still waiting for that pending confirmation from National Park Service about with the lease with the schools and that ending and all that stuff. So, which we haven't gotten yet. So, that's probably until the lease expires in 2 years, 3 years, 2 years. We're kind of on hold with Agara anyway at this point. So.
At the last school board meeting last week, we had some discussion about providing potentially a charge to the Planning and Building Committee regarding the use of that or other school district property regarding recreational activities and whatnot. So, I mean, it's timely that, if this is something, you're looking for, we can also make sure that the planning, if we do go forward with that charge, that it could be taken into consideration.
Okay.
If it's something that there's a joint town, school need for it, and what properties might be best for that. It's worth some collaboration, in my
Well, I
opinion.
guess that was kind of a backup question in terms of, I'm going to say high school primarily, but is there a school need for an outdoor full-size basketball court that would then be available to the general public when school's not using it?
Right. I'm not sure, and so there was.
No, I'm not either.
Yeah.
Just-
But it's something that I think deserves some collaboration. That would be my opinion.
Okay. Something else on that issue. Go ahead, Matt.
One last thought on that issue, as we were listening to the league stock, was maybe down the road would be to look at putting lights at Twardowski, and whether that's feasible or not, because that would certainly open up extra hours over there.
Without affecting anybody.
Is there, I can't remember, is there houses across the street from that?
Couple, I believe.
They usually go in the back, which is why we have that field to begin with.
Well,
It was a
Twarowski,
trading
Yeah.
right?
thing.
I know with Twardowski, it's not very big for parking,
And
and
that's-
any on-street parking is on a very busy street until they make that turn.
Right.
And I know there was some issues with that, so.
Right.
I think we're gonna have parking issues.
You wouldn't want people
With either
leaving
field.
in the dark and
Right.
being on that road.
You know, that as a question, when did they stop playing real softball?
I'm not sure.
Do you know, Rick?
What do you mean by
Stop
real
playing
softball?
real
I
softball.
mean, by the real rules and three outs and it sounds like these
Sorry.
games are truncated and they're like almost like pinball games or something. They just don't strike me as real.
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't
I
know.
think some of it is
athletic.
what they have for field space and trying to get as much in as they
Yeah,
can, you know.
yeah. Well, I was wondering if they might play real softball if they had more fields and maybe fewer out-of-town players. Because ironically, did you notice that they were complaining about too many players and going late? Whereas, but that they had to take in. There were so few Merrimack people who wanted to play that they had to take in out of town. So I thought there was a little bit of a inconsistency.
Well, I didn't understand it that way, but that's okay. Well, the other issues need to be addressed first, so.
They might be all in one. That's why I would like you to come back to the committee.
Oh, yeah.
It's all interwoven.
So, anything else on the basketball court from anybody?
Nope.
Lights at Twardowski has those other issues to
Right.
to think about. We can certainly take a look at that. I was going to ask, just what's a basketball court cost?
Don't know. I mean, I take a rough guess and say $50,000 to do it properly, but I'm guessing
Depends on surface and
what you have.
the bases and ledge and
Yeah, having looked at some other things, fencing alone is expensive. We know that, don't we, Christine? And the
Sure
basketball
do.
court would probably have fencing more than 4 feet tall,
Yes, ideally.
more than 6 feet tall. Nonetheless, I'm going to guess a little bit more than that, but I don't know. Thought maybe you had a feeling for it.
off the top of my head. No, I'm trying to look it up.
Okay. Next is parking athletic fields director's report.
All right.
All right. I'm Matt. We can continue. So the director's report establishing a recreation revolving fund. It will be listed as Article 9 on the ballot on April 12th. We need everyone to help spread the word about it. We are going to be working with Merrimack TV on a video next week, which Matt will email the link when it's available. He was going to do it tonight, but since he is not feeling well, he didn't, and he will be sending it shortly. The next one, I'll go ahead with summer camp. Registration, currently, we're up to 230 session registrations compared to 90 when we met last month.
Wow.
So that's great. We had a total of 810 registrations last year, so we're already more than a quarter of the way there already.
That's awesome.
We're seeing lots of new families this year, and I'm assuming that the way that the payment can be processed is really aiding that tremendously. Great job getting that up, said Cinda. To separate his comments from mine. So, I'm not multiple personality. Wasserman Park improvements, water line and heating system work are now complete. We just received the bids from the sprinkler system. We're waiting for the fire department to sign off on their plans, and work should be starting soon. Once the sprinklers are done, we will be able to rent out the function hall to the general public.
Yay!
Pleased to hear that.
So realistically, May 1st, hopefully.
Yay. We are also currently out to bid to replace all of the outdated windows in the building, add insulation to the basement.
Beautiful.
So great. Lastly, we had our last two buildings come down in the park. Cabin 15, which was down near the waterfront, as well as the old Wasserman House, came down 2 weeks ago, and the area already looks so much better than it did before. Both buildings are far beyond repair and cost prohibitive to repair. Those were the last of the buildings that we expect to have taken down, at least for a long time.
Great.
So, Easter egg hunt. The annual Easter egg hunt was held on March 19th, and we had an estimated 800 people in attendance, and we gave out more than 4,000 Easter eggs. So,
Awesome.
Easter egg.
bunnies were hopping all over.
At
And
least
Chris,
we
you
did
were
better than the place in Vermont and the one in Connecticut that had arrests. And
I heard about that.
Oh,
God.
all it takes is a few bad eggs.
You can just pass the report on to the next reader.
I think she should read all of them.
Skateboard park. The skateboard park will be opening up soon. There are several skate surfaces that cracked last year that need to be replaced, and DPW needs several days in a row of good weather to make the repairs. We will post updates when we know the specific dates. Summer concerts. Our 20th annual summer concert series will kick off on June 22nd and will run through August 17th this year. And the summer movies in the park, we are going to be holding a free movie night in Watson Park on Wednesday, August 24th.
Fantastic.
4th of July, the annual parade will be held on Monday, July 4th, as always, with fireworks scheduled for the night. If anyone is interested in volunteering to help out with the parade, please let Matt know. We always need 10 to 12 people just at the parade starting line. Brochure. The new Spring Summer Parks and Recreation brochure will be coming out on Friday, April 15th. Hard copies will be available at the Town Hall, the library, and the O'Leary Adult Community Center, as well as online. Published article. Matt sent you, all of us, a link earlier today, but an article that he wrote about the benefits of sending your child to municipal summer day camps was published by Camp Navigator magazine, which is geared towards helping parents find out information about camp. So nice to get some publicity for the town.
Well done, Matt. I read the article. Very well written. Thank you. I'm just, let me interrupt. Where is Camp Navigator distributed?
It's all online, but they get something like 58,000 hits a month on their site, according to their statistics. So they approached us about writing the article because they were looking for that topic and said, hey, want to do this? Sure, why not? And so we did.
Well, good. You did a great
Is there
job.
link
Thank you.
on our website?
It is.
Oh,
Came in your
good.
email, yeah.
Oh, that's,
Today, an email from them.
yeah, I saw it,
But it's
yes.
on the Park and Rec website, too, under the news.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's great. Thanks for doing that. Disc golf update. As you know, plans are in the works to build a disc golf course at Wasserman Park in the wooded area behind the visitor parking lot and behind the new dog park. Chris Murgamekis and Nat Fairbanks are leading the volunteer group who are working to privately raise the funding necessary to build the course. The estimated cost to build an 18-hole disc golf course is $14,000. To date, approximately $1,100 has been raised toward the project. They have a Facebook page set up, which can be found by searching for Wasserman Park Disc Golf. And then, moving to Wasserman Park, we will hopefully be moving back to Wasserman Park at the end of next week. The move is weather dependent, and right now it looks like it's going to get cold again next week, and we don't want the water pipes to freeze, so it could be the following week. All right, you're welcome.
Good work, Matt. It sounds like you've
I'm
accomplished much.
missing one little thing here on that last part. We don't want the water to freeze, but I thought everything was being installed for year-round operation.
That's for the function hall. My office, the water lines go into the basement, which is unheated.
Okay.
So my office is a little bit, we're going to fix, that's the next thing we have to fix.
Okay. Very good.
You've been very busy.
Thank you, Matt, both of you. Summer camp update, all of that stuff was in there.
Yep.
We're down to organization reports. Do we have anybody? No, Maureen's not here. I'll give her a plug. She volunteered at the Easter egg hunt. That was very nice of her.
Oh, good.
MOA. Anything new besides what we just talked about?
Very little. Obviously, softball and baseball are about to kick off. And one thing I did want to point out that you may all be interested in is the date of the parade for baseball. Traditionally, it's been held on the Friday of our school vacation week, which this year is April 29, I believe. However, the parade, if my date is correct, will be a week later on May 6. So Friday, May 6, I imagine Babusick will be shut down for an hour or two. Lacrosse will be starting as well. Spring soccer. And our other sports are pending, and I'm trying to think of what else I might be missing. We do have some executive board elections coming up at our next meeting, but I don't think really that's going to affect you or that you'd be interested in it.
Okay. Thank you very much. We
welcome.
don't have anybody from town council. Cinda, anything from the school board, school district?
Just that the graduation date has been set to June 11th.
That sounds late. My imagination, or is it?
No, it's about right, I think.
That's about right.
Is it?
It's-
Okay. Maybe it just sounds late to me because I know the seniors would rather it be June 1st.
They're probably off way
In fact,
earlier than
if they had their choice, it'd probably be April 1st. Anyway, I think any comments from the public we've had already. Do we have anything additional from the committee? Christine?
I was just curious if, in light of the issue that has come up, if any talk had been. Sorry. I was just wondering if, in light of what came up tonight with Martell Field, if there was any discussion between the parties to maybe having a police detail as they exiting, and maybe that'll help monitor some of the traffic. It was just a thought, and I didn't know if it had come up in their previous discussions, or maybe it will come up, but it was just something I thought of.
It has come up.
Okay.
We've discussed it. Of course, at this point in time, they're not playing,
Right.
so there's nothing to observe. Certainly,
Kind of a wait and see kind
well,
of thing.
you know, I think we need a little bit more, and whether this comes from police detail or something else, a little more specifics about really when things are occurring. If it's tire spinning is happening because there's sand, and I can understand that. That's one thing. If there's trash, we don't really know when that's being deposited,
Right.
and that's kind of outside the park, so we really have no way of knowing unless you clean up every day and say, oh, it was clean yesterday and it's been trashed again today. So we need a little more research on that perhaps from the neighborhood or whatever. But yeah, we've talked about police details that
Okay,
type
I was
of
just
thing.
curious.
Yep. Anything to add to that, Matt?
Not really. They pointed out the deed restriction on that its priority is given to the league, to the adult softball over everybody else anyway, because again, they built the field. So that's something certainly to keep in mind. We have talked to DPW about trash, increasing barrels, maybe dumpsters. And we've talked to the police already about directed patrols, so particularly as we start the season. So it's already kind of in the works, but I think it's premature to do anything because we don't necessarily know that it's this group and not a couple of teenagers hiding in the neighborhood at night after dark because it's unlit, you know.
I think Mr. Thornton knew. I think he didn't want to belabor it too much.
Yeah.
The article I read in the newspaper indicated that they do patrol a lot, and they have had some specific information, I'm sure. This didn't come out of nowhere.
Well, I talked to the police chief, and there was, like I said, there was only 3 calls over there last year.
Well, that might be so. I don't call the police.
Right.
You know, I mean,
But again,
I gotta
if
call
it's a
the police
problem,
and-
they need to. You know, that's realistically, they either need to call the police to get them to come down and deal with it, or at the very least, call us the next day and say, hey, we had a problem here last night, so that we can say, okay, this is the group. you
Yes.
know?
Yeah, I think I just have one major point to make, one minor point really, that there is a problem. And discussing it with an open mind will help the neighbors. Because these guys, a strong voice in a group can
Squelch.
yes, thank you. Yes, they really can, yeah, and change the whole discussion. I do have one thing to say. Thanks part to Matt. Matt's been a help with this, though this isn't Parks and Rec, but we're going to have the art in the park again. And we just got permission last week to go forward, for the Manchester artists to go forward. And we don't, it's kind of a hands-off. I'd help them because I know, one of the people involved. But basically, they're kind of on their own this year at Watson Park. And hopefully they'll just, it'll be a incentivized event.
Good, thank you.
I had one last thing, too.
Matt, go ahead.
I had the misfortune last week, also at the council meeting, for the function hall, updating the rules and regs that we updated back in the fall. I happened to be last on the agenda.
Oh, boy.
I got up there at 10:45, and at 10:50 they said, well, we have some questions, and rather than giving me 5 minutes to run over here and grab it, they said, well, why don't you come back next time? So I'll be at their agenda again
I hope
in
they
2
put
weeks
you
to
on.
finalize the function hall
That
fees
could
and all
be
that.
rough. I hate to see little kids waiting too.
Yeah. But
Well,
I happened to be last, so
Yeah,
it was 10:50. They were tired, and okay, so
Well, and 2 weeks from the 14th is the
14th 's
time
next
we're
one.
there for the Parks and Rec Committee annual update.
Okay, well, I'll be there too.
So you and I maybe need to talk about that a little bit, Laura.
Yep.
Okay, and we have on the agenda, next meeting is April, where'd it go, 20th?
Yep.
And May 18th.
Yep.
Is there any reason anybody knows of that we should not meet on those 2 days? Thank you all for adjusting your schedules to come tonight. This is kind of an unusual meeting date, but I think because of the softball or the Martell Field issues, it was important to get